Welcome to the EarthWorks podcast, where our team will share the jargon of carbon from many of our turf friends from the past 30 years.
Hello all, and welcome to the EarthWorks podcast. I am your host today, at least, Jack Higgins, and man, I am very happy because I am sitting square across the desk from my good old friend. I'm out here in Lancaster. That's right, Lancaster Country Club. I'm sitting down with Josh Saunders. And Josh, thank you so much for having me here.
Hey, as always, thanks for having me.
Dude, if it's the first week of May 2022, that means it's 2 years since we did this for the very first time.
Right, so let's make this one the charm. Third time's a charm,
Third
right?
time's a charm, baby. And yeah, dude, I mean, the idea of the first one was, well, it was COVID and we were all kind of pulling our hair out, right?
Yeah, I think we all don't want to reference back to that time, but I have to say and probably speak for the superintendents and everyone in the industry worldwide, a big thank you to you and Joel. This
Dude.
is very cool. I remember when you called me and you were like, hey, I got this whole concept and we're thinking about doing this. And I was like, okay, well, if you want me to be the guinea pig, I would. And look at us now. And it's a lot of great useful information and great stories. And, you know I personally would sit back and throw the earbuds on and listen to a podcast while I was out walking the course or mowing greens or just spending time with Divot. And
Dude, you mow greens?
every once in a while, I am a member of the tree, but you know the tree I'm speaking of. But I don't wear penny loafers. I wear a pair.
They're gonna love that.
I wear a pair of Keens every day because it's a message. You're sending a message to the membership.
That's right. This guy gets it done.
Right. So no, I honestly and wholeheartedly thank you to everyone at EarthWorks. It's in a time that was very uncertain when we couldn't play golf and you were out maintaining and you didn't know what the end was. It was nice to sit back and hear others talk.
Yeah.
And you and Joel do such a great job at this. So blessed and fortunate to be the guinea pig, numero uno.
Yes. Now we're back.
Now we're back and looking forward to continue the tradition for the next years to come.
Yeah, all right, good, because we have a lot to talk about, and we just got back in from a really lovely cruise out there, and I could set the scene a little bit. It's like a beautiful sunny day, but it's kind of frigid out there.
Well, that's the spring we've been having, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's frustrating. I'm sure a lot of people, especially in the Northeast region, are kind of pulling their hair out because, we'll have stretches of great weather and the bent starts to kind of, hey, how you doing every once in a while? And then it's just like right back to mid-January. So,
yeah, I mean, that's exactly the way it's been.
Right. It's been the trend through this whole project. I know you're kind of starting to allude to it, but it's
right. We've got a lot to talk about in terms of weather and all the work that you got done over the winter and how the weather kind of played into that. But again, yeah, I mean, it's beautiful out. This turf's been out of dormancy, or at least a lot of it has, for a couple weeks now. And it's green, but you're not getting a lot of growth.
No growth at all, and I mean, it's frustrating. I've talked to other individuals, and it's like, what do you do? And you kind of just have to take a step back and remember that bent grass especially needs certain criteria to really get going. And it's a combination of both soil temp and ambient temperature, right?
Yes.
And you have to have that balance of both to actively grow. And what I really try to instill in my assistants and in my superintendent is look, I know we're ready to go, but you also have to take a step back a little bit too and realize that if you're pushing the envelope too much, if you're mowing too much, if you're rolling too much, if you're setting the standard too much right now, then you're setting yourself up for some repercussions come season time. So it's a combination of that and not beating it when it's down too much.
Oh, absolutely. I can't imagine if you were trying to like brush in a bunch of top dressing or something like that. I mean, you're not actively growing enough for that much work.
Absolutely. And it's also communication and setting the standards with the membership. You know, they have to understand too. You know, it's been a long winter for them as well. So like, you know, they get back on property and they're expecting those 11.5s. They're expecting those 12s. They're expecting that firmness. But you also have to set the precedent for them and educate them that, yes, you may be mowing your home lawn, we may be greening up, but bent grass, especially maintained at a fine texture that we do, needs a little additional standards and a little additional help to get going. And the steps we're making now is what's going to get us through the season. So,
well, let's kind of jump back because you did have a very busy winter. Also, you know,
not as busy as I would have liked.
Okay, maybe that's part of it.
Right.
Yeah. Well, now also, I don't think that we got to touch much on the driving range project that you really kind of worked on all season last year, all growing season. And I don't think we really talked about that much in last year's episode. So if we could start there, that would be great because that project is fully complete now.
Right. So that was our big off-season project of 20 into 21.
Okay.
It was in combination with what was called the Defining Moment project of the club, in which we did a $20 million project in facilities.
New clubhouse.
Not a new clubhouse. We did some enhancement to the clubhouse, but we built a new activities pavilion, which, a lot with what we would discuss towards the project on the golf course was really just trying to stay current in times, right? And really appealing to, what I would say is kind of our generation, right? A place that you can bring the kids, drop them off, and you could go to the gym, or you could go sit in more of a laid-back dining and atmosphere with TVs. But then there's also simulators that aren't just for golf, and you can go and you can bowl and you can shoot archery or shoot guns. And
let me know when they have the hookah lounge, and I'll consider my membership at that point.
Okay, 10-4. We'll keep you fully. We are in Pennsylvania, Jack.
Okay, got it.
But yeah, no, just a really huge defining moment, and it's not a play on words there, but defining moment for the club for the next generations to come, but also still catering to the foundation and the legacy of this club with the existing membership. So on top of that, I remember, and I know I told you this and Joel this because you guys were some of my first visitors here when I started in 2019. I remember showing up 10 to 15 minutes early for my first interview because, if you're not 10 or 15 minutes early, you're late.
Of course.
That's how us Southerners are raised. So I remember sitting in the parking lot and just kind of like pulling myself together, but looking over this driving range. And it reminded me of something I saw in the South. It reminded me of a cow pasture, for lack of better words.
Yeah, because it's what you see when you pull in the main driveway.
It's a first impression.
Right. It's
right.
A total
So
first impression.
The way our driveway is set up, you drive in and you have your paddle and your tennis to the left. You get a glimpse of the property, but you don't really see the golf course, which is really unique. Not a lot of clubs have that luxury. So everything's out in front of you, from the structures, from, the clubhouse, from the new pavilion, and, everything with tennis. And you gaze to the right, and all you would see was, this 2-tee setup. One was a cool season back tee. There was a 4-tee that was warm season but had some other grasses in it. And then it was basically a wide open field with little mounds that looked like, there was a bunch of punch bugs just buried.
Right.
With a stick.
Yeah,
just
they weren't really target greens.
It was like little birthday cupcakes all throughout, the whole range. And I said it from the start, and, I really got into my GM's ear with the whole defining moment and my committee that, look, this is our opportunity to enhance the first impression of the club. And on top of that, we've touched on each of our podcasts, it's also the state of the industry too.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone practices now. It's we're not in AI syndrome anymore. We're practice, that just doesn't happen
No,
any
they're
longer.
here. They want to come out and practice, and especially if there's also a facility for the rest of the family, or for yourself, or you could swing the club and you could go to the gym and you could.
Boom. Yeah, exactly. You've created this, right? You just pegged exactly what I said. It gives the opportunity for mom or dad to come and choose to either gym or hit balls while they drop their son or daughter off in the kids zone. You spend an hour and a half, whatever you're doing, working out or working on the short game, whatever you may be doing, and then you can all meet in the bistro and have dinner and go home. And
Yes.
so it was very important for me. So we took what I would consider a very blank canvas. We put in 9 target greens.
Okay.
We put in some bunkers.
Okay.
We put in a fairway. We recaptured. So the existing layout of the driving range was actually the Sunset 6. It was kind of an old executive course that was eliminated prior to the Women's Open in 2015. Some of the footprint still remained, and one of them was the old second green of Sunset.
And is that one of the target greens?
It's actually the furthest target green. So it would be the 10th target green. Not reachable from the tees. But what's cool is we set it up with the fairway and how it combines with the 9 other targets, that the fairway shifts and kind of dog legs left. So you can also have the visual of playing a hole
Yes.
from the tee, even though there's a lot of different targets. So, I think we accomplished a lot of that. Nagel and I put a lot of time on that. Jim Nagel, who our architect is, and I'll probably be referencing a lot over the podcast. But, we achieved a lot of the factors we wanted to achieve all in-house, with very much in confines of the budget. And we built all the targets where they would be two-sided. Another aspect of the project that we're working on now is to build a new back tee. The back tee would be mainly a teaching tee. I could see it used a lot in the 24 Open. One of the big drawbacks of our range is you're hitting right into the setting sun.
Right. Yeah. So, you're hitting due west.
Right. So if you have that back tee for, those that are going to be practicing late day, late night, it's going to be an alternate tee for the Women's Open. So
Do I remember from a previous visit that you were talking about like the skyline, or a Lancaster skyline, or something farther out behind the back of the range that you were trying to open up?
yeah, in all offense to all the other Lancastrians out there, what skyline we do have.
There are a couple
I did come from
buildings.
Pittsburgh, so you see it a lot during the winter because obviously there's no leaves on the trees. There's a few trees we're going to have to take down to support the new back tee, which will expose a little bit of the Marriott. That's the tallest building in the city. So you will see a little bit of it, of what skyline we do have. Yep, absolutely.
All right, that's cool. So, okay, let's just, before we leave the driving range, let's talk about turf types out there, because you also have 2 very large tees.
Yep.
You have these 9 different practice greens, and you have the floor, the fairway, and they're all different turf types.
Right. So now our actual tee space is just under an acre.
Okay.
We added 15,000 square feet to the forward tee. So the back tee is a cool season tee. We put in a tee line. So I think that's important to reference. A tee line.
And I don't really know what that is.
That's a mat. So
Okay.
it's like a mat, like if you went to Top Golf or
Got it.
anything in that nature. So we put in a continuous tee line along the entire backside of the tee that can station about 30 to 35 hitting stations. So we use that for outings, post-rain days, like major rain days. But most importantly, the start and the finish of the year. We already alluded to it, right? Bentgrass is slow to wake up right now. So if I already had them on our bentgrass tee, which is the back tee, we would be beating that up in the Bermudas weeks from even waking up.
exactly. So you have two tees
Right.
that are not exactly suited well for the early spring.
Right.
But
So-
now you have a tee line.
Right. So we have a tee line. So that's going to cover our bases to around Mother's Day. And then we'll open up the bent tee. The bent tee will last us probably about a month to a month and a half, which will get us past our member guests.
Okay.
Which I would, prefer if you've got guests coming in for the membership, playing off the surfaces that we have on the property.
Good point.
And then we'll transition to the forward tee, which we sodded with Tahoma 31.
Wow.
So very impressed in the first year. Not just like in recovery. I mean, I think all of us as superintendents, that's our first thought process when we're choosing a driving range tee. But really playability. I mean, as a golfer myself, I was amazed at the similarities between the Tahoma and our back bent grass tee.
Wow.
And I mean, to be a warm season compared to, you wouldn't think it. You think Bermuda grass, everyone's initially thinking, okay, it's going to be grabby. It's going to grab your club. It's going to turn. It's
so fine, right?
It's awesome. It
Yeah.
really is. Really, really impressed with it. To be late April, the winter we've had, the spring we've had, yes, I'm starting to see a little green there, but not a lot.
Okay.
So can't really comment. Well, let's store that in the memory bank for next year.
Right. I mean,
and how
because
it woke up after its first winter.
I can't emphasize, like, it's cold out there, like, and there's like 30-mile-an-hour winds today, so it feels extra cold.
Yeah, it's been pretty nuts. I mean, it's really a big spring of up and downs, and warmth and then cold and then warm and then cold, and a wet spring and a wet late winter.
Tell us about the target greens out there.
So the target's a Zoysia, Xeon Zoysia. Just low maintenance input kind of thought process. Got a good friend in DC that has a lot of Zoysia, and Ryan at Woodmont.
That's right.
Then talked a lot with Brandon at Overbrook because his targets there are Zoysia as well. So just kind of consulting with them. They just wanted a low input for financial and labor.
Sure, yeah. And plus now you have the Zoysia on property, so like who knows what could happen next. Like you have it, you getting comfortable with it, maybe your thoughts will spin on where else you might want it.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely a grass that's kind of becoming more and more in the known, right?
Yeah,
like
definitely.
People are talking about it a lot more. It's being in use, and another thing too, and just a perfect segue to the rest of our conversation is contrast.
Exactly.
With now, 2 years ago it was a field that was maintained at the same height.
Yeah,
Right.
That's right.
It
was dull.
It was a combination of a lot of things. And yes, the targets had some circles on it of bent grass combination kind of deal to make it look like a target. But now you have bent grass tee, Bermuda tee, rough. That's a hodgepodge. We haven't done anything there. Then a fairway that we seeded with the combination of Piranha, 007, some Pin Trio, basically any seed that I had in the tool shed.
And plugs, you said too, right?
Yeah, that was a long story, long frustrating story. So, obviously seed and bent grass is perfect in late July, August. So
Yes.
we used the combination. I had one of those brilliant superintendent moments. August aerification, we're pulling a core. Tees, approaches, and greens. You know what, boys? Instead of taking it to the dump, let's take it to the driving range fairway.
What a smart guy.
Yeah, it was brilliant there for a while. So, I actually camped out one of our good old-time, long-term, full-time guys who's a former superintendent, Todd, and I camped him out. I was like, you're going to hate me for the next 3 or 4 days, but you're going to be right here, and you're going to orchestrate when the guys bring you the plugs, dump them, break them out,
Okay.
and let's see how far we made it. We made it 20 yards. I was all fired up.
You're like, I'm going to save a bunch of money. I'm doing the right thing.
It's like a 3-acre fairway, and we made it 20 yards. And so I was like, well, that chalk it up. That was, that was a Pete Went memory.
There you go.
So we ended up seeding it. the Thursday after we finished airification, and Friday into Saturday is when the remnants of Henri came.
Oh, yeah, that was a nasty hurricane.
Yeah, the first hurricane. And they weren't anticipating it being as bad as they thought it was going to be here. So I think we got like 4.5 inches or something like that, and maybe 3. I can't remember. August was a big blur for me last year because of the second event that I would witness.
Right.
But we lost all our seed. Had washes. Sand and dirt were going all into the lows, and it was a pretty bad deal. I feel for all the brothers in arms out there that go through renovations and do grow-ins and experience it. I dealt with it on a 3-acre fairway, and I was pulling hair out.
Yeah, exactly.
And
all on the driving range, yeah.
Right. So then we spent like the next 2 weeks kind of spot seeding, and we're getting the catches in areas, and pulled the plug on seeding again. And then what came out of Louisiana was Ida.
Ida, dude, that was a nasty hurricane.
Record-breaking rainfall here. We had our second largest flood in history.
And this is a place that knows how to flood.
Yeah, let's not talk about it that much longer. So it was a rough stretch, but luckily, we got past that and continued to seed and did some work with airification in November. Took some plugs to some of the lows and filled some of the gullies. Did that again this spring. Got a pretty good base, and now it looks like a fairway from a distance.
Absolutely, yeah.
And
that's where you see a driving range
key.
floor.
If you can't grow it, you mulch it.
That's it.
Learned that a long time ago. But no, I'm really excited about it. I'm really excited about it in the next couple years as it matures, to be such a fresh project. I mean, the membership really loves it. And
yeah. And okay, now you kind of mentioned this at the start, that what's really awesome is you pull in the driveway, and we haven't really touched on this yet, but of course you're hosting the 2024 Women's Open. So I'm thinking about all these people that are going to be coming on property that have never been there before. You come in, you see this clubhouse to the left, this cool new driving range to the right, this new facility which is called the
golf plaza
right in front of you. But you don't see the property, and then you come around the building, and bam, dude,
yeah,
big time. And I mean, this is my first time here this spring, and you did an enormous amount of work this winter. Again, you said not as much as you want, never as much as you want, but
well, no, I think progress.
Okay,
it's progress. That's how I would reference it that way. I mean, I think everyone, especially in the Northeast, would agree it was a challenging winter to get projects done. You looked out the window, and it's not that we were under constant snowfall or snow cover. I think we had 12 total inches in Lancaster this winter, which is not nearly close to the norm.
No, where were you the winter before?
44 inches the winter before. Averages in the kind of low 30s around
Wow.
here. But what that did is we had a lot of vicious freezing and thawing cycles. And then on top of that, we had a lot of rain. And, when a plant's not actively growing, nothing's taking up the water. So everything stays wet for a lot longer, and really impeded the project, with bunkers and everything we're doing, which I'm jumping to the gun in our conversation. But, yeah, it's the transformation of this property since I've been here in 3 years is I've had to talk about it so much over the last 4 or 5 months.
And live it every day.
Right, with town halls, with the club, and, other interviews and just talks. And I can't really put into words, and I don't know how to say it any other way. I mean, it's like your face when you saw it today. It's when I had a good friend, Eric Spurlock, here today, and same thing. Those that don't see the property as regular as I do or the other staff does, they're pretty blown away. And I'm excited now that my membership's coming back. They're going to get to see and experience the wow factor that they got last spring with the golf plaza and the putting green, and all of that. Now being able to stand on that putting green and basically see the entire property with the exception of 3 holes.
Yeah. Now, is that all 27 holes, or are you saying the entire class,
Flint.
the entire Flint, the entire
of the whole
championship?
course. Yep. But you could pan to the right and see
A lot of Highland as well.
Right, 1, 9, 6, 7. Yeah, I mean you can see a bunch of holes over there as well.
So yes, you stand on this putting green, which was new really around this time last year.
We opened it the 1st of June, right around Memorial Day last year.
Okay.
I think we had just sodded when I was talking with Joel last Mother's Day.
That's right.
Yep.
Now, how big is that green again?
It's 14,500 square feet.
It's a big old boy.
Yeah, it's right nice.
Mm-hmm. And that made a huge difference. I mean, how many cups do you have in it?
We went from just over a 6,000 square foot putting green to a 14.5.
Wow. 5 or 6 cups, something like that.
Yeah, we keep about 12 in there.
Oh, really?
10 to 12, just kind of depending on time of year and events and schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, again, Nagel did a phenomenal job. It really mimics the greens on the property. We really sat there and laid out and thought about different putts, and different angles and left to rights and right to lefts and uphills and downhills. And, it's settled a little bit, which is kind of natural when you have a green of that big of size. But I think it's really coming on, and membership was just blown away with it, and it's not just with a green of that size and its location. It's not just the warm up, it's, me having some late days last season and like driving in and seeing the kids out putting when their parents were having dinner, or, seeing the guys breaking off a dinner and taking their cold beers out and having that friendly little wager as, the wives or family continues to sit on the terrace. So it's definitely created a cool little atmosphere.
Yeah, I mean, the aesthetics and aesthetics just isn't like visual beauty. It's kind of those things that you're talking about as well. It's the other things that can affect culture, like it's setting a really comfortable and fun environment, and that's those sort of changes. You don't have to be a stick golfer to appreciate,
right?
And that's real, and you're doing all that here, which is really cool. Yeah, so that putting green flows right into the first tee. It's got this really nice kind of flow and openness, and you're standing on the high point of the property, looking out, and I imagine record number of open vistas that you opened up, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to say this politely.
You're being very politically correct. I agree.
You did a lot of work through the winter.
We had a great winter. It was a great combination of my staff, and we had some contractors on property, and we took down a lot of trees.
Something that I hadn't seen, and maybe I just haven't noticed, but I want to bring up because I think it's probably just the right way to do things. Is you have all these stumps painted with some kind of herbicide.
Trichoptor.
Okay, and that is to prevent suckers from regrowing out of the stump.
Yep. It's basically it's kind of using the old tar fashion. So like if you had a branch go and you wanted to protect the tree, you would tar it. If you cut a tree down and you had a stump, you would tar it, and that would prevent any kind of growth from coming back up.
Yeah.
So we basically used a pigment and trichoptor, and we painted all the stumps.
Yeah. And soon you're going to have some vegetative growth up above it, and you'll never see any woody growth coming out of it again.
So just so the listeners know,
right.
We all know Jack very well. I didn't leave stumps on the golf course. Now
the one in the middle of the fairway out there.
Right. Now we did do some removal on a couple hillsides that we had in between 2 and 7, and then surrounding our Highlands Bridge on on the Highlands side of the property of number 1 and number 9.
And these were the difference makers for being able to see
Oh,
the
yeah.
golf course.
I mean, it's number 2, in each of the town halls and in all my communication to the membership, I've expressed it this way. This project's really evolved, and we're getting into this now in our conversation. But, it's gone from a bunker project to really seizing the opportunity and, to really protect and be stewards of William Flynn, to improve aesthetics, to improve growing atmospheres, and growing environments. And, but as I said to you multiple times today, like what I'm most proud about with this project and what I'm always going to hang my hat on is this has been 3 years of collective work with Nagel and my committee. There was never an agenda.
Mm-hmm.
It was, if you had to put a mission statement, it was to maintain the integrity of William Flynn,
Right.
to maintain championship status, but also to improve playability for all skill levels.
For all the membership.
The entire membership. Mm-hmm. And that was my driving force. Mm-hmm. I always cut people off in conversation off property or on property, whether it was with members, with friends, with acquaintances of, you're doing the USGA making you do this? Is this for the Open or what? And I was like, no,
this is for us.
This is for the future.
Yeah.
This is for the membership. That they sign the checks.
That's right.
And that's what I think is important to remember. And we sat at many, many committee meetings, pinpointing bunker locations and tee locations. And it was, well, is the bunker in the right spot for our gold and blue tee players? Yeah, that was always a topic of discussion. But then it would go to, well, how would it be in relation for the women during the Women's Open? But it always came back to, how is it affecting all of our players, our silver tee players, our white tee players, everyone. So I'm really proud about that.
That was some of the other work that you talked about doing, and you showed me today, was that you built silver tees all over the golf course where these seniors and juniors were hitting from fairways before.
Yeah, we had 7 holes that they played from fairways, and I'm like, they don't have their own identity. Like,
right.
We're one of the top clubs in the state, top private clubs in the state, and we're trying to grow the game for juniors, and you're trying to prolong the game for everyone else. And you come out and you play. Who wants to go peg it up in a fairway?
No, it's not cool.
Right. You want to have your own tee. You want to have
right.
your own. I want to feel like everyone else.
Yeah. Everyone else has a tee, and I have to hit from the fairway.
Well, Jack's back there playing from the golds, and I got to go hit in the fairway.
That's right.
It takes him 4 times to get to the fairway.
The bomber.
Right. But yeah, no, that was a big point of emphasis. So we've really addressed our silver tees, and that's going to continue. There'll be some off-season work this coming off-season where we'll address some of the existing silver tees and making them bigger. And, it's a really cool, unique demographic here. And we get a lot of play from our forward tees, which is great because it tells me that, A, we're prolonging the game, and B, we're encouraging the game. And, that's the future of this club.
Yeah, and also you must have a very comfortable atmosphere here for people to feel comfortable to play from the tee that they're supposed to play from, because
absolutely
that tends to happen, that they should be playing but they won't. Let's see, some of the other cool work that you pointed out that really changes aesthetics. Is you sodded all of your intermediates in the green surrounds, all of your first pass?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so just, just kind of a pure aesthetic and playability thing.
Contrast as well.
Yeah, contrast is definitely going to help.
Because it's all HGT?
Yeah, HGT, so, kind of the version of the Lomo Blue. We had a hodgepodge in our intermediate cuts, and I did a very similar project, the exact same project at Longview when I was there.
Okay.
Again, as a player, I hated barely going off the green, being in the first cut, and not having the option to putt, not having the option to use a hybrid or something to keep it low because I may be nestled down in a little bit of bent grass, when there's ryegrass or bluegrass around me, or POA.
Yeah,
for that
yeah,
matter,
exactly.
too.
You
So,
could be on the very, very grounded POA.
right. So, ultimately it was a big aesthetic decision, but playability for the most part. Just trying to improve it around the greens with removing collars to kind of keep that classic look in our topography and our undulations. Balls do kind of just trickle right off the green. So having a playability aspect was pretty huge in that decision.
Something that I've heard you talk about today, maybe more in the past, maybe I'm keyed into listening to it, I'm not sure, or I feel as though I'm seeing you learning.
I think I'm just getting wiser. I'm getting older.
Well, and
I'm another year older, Jack.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, but this specifically is, we were kind of cruising the back nine of Flynn, and you mentioned to me that there are, what is it? I took it down. They're like all uphill second shots on the back nine.
5 second shots.
Yeah.
That are uphill.
And I heard you talk about, like, on the putting green, how you and Jim Nagel really thought about the different putts that could be out there for the pin positions on the greens. Like, you really know each shot of this golf course.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I study it. I learn it. I walk it I walk it a lot with clubs, without clubs. I watch. Like, I think that's one of the, outside of playing golf, I think that's one of the most important aspects of our job is watching, and watching all skill levels.
Right, because to know each shot of the golf course, they're different shots for different skill levels,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. Are they a ground player, or do they hit it really high, or, length? Are they a short knocker? Do they, Bryson it? There's all kind of different ways to look at it. And so I think that's important. And I alluded to it, that's where I'm hanging my hat on this project. It's really, really good.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's really good. I've been very fortunate to work, play, walk a lot of great properties. I've learned under some great mentors, and I've experienced a lot, and sad to say, 27 years in this industry.
What do you mean sad? It's wonderful.
Yeah. Well, I'm just another year older.
What was the name of the club in Floyd that you worked at?
In Martinsville.
In Martinsville, okay.
Linwood,
yes.
Which is no longer in existence. It was a course built for DuPont. So
oh, wow.
One of the headquarters of DuPont was in Martinsville at the time, back when Martinsville was booming. So that's where I, started working at 14 and 15 and haven't looked back.
There you go, dude. Well, okay, let's keep going on the project, because there's a couple things that we haven't talked about. We kind of alluded around it. You've got a full bunker project going on out there. We talked about some of the other auxiliary work, including opening up these vistas, which really makes a big difference. But in terms of shot by shot out there, the big changes are you're redoing, well, first of all, capillary concrete in every bunker.
Every bunker.
New drainage.
We used the existing.
Okay.
We tested all the drainage. Really, didn't have hardly any issues with any of our drainage. We had 5 bunkers, I think, out of the 70 plus that we replaced the drainage on. Now, 4 of them were in the floodplain, which, again, we had to say that word. But obviously I wanted to replace the drainage there. And then we had...
Were they full of silt?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Dude, that was watching Martin, which is a good segue, Martin Golf.
All right.
Doing great work.
Excellent.
When we started doing the bunker on 7, seeing the layers, like of the sand. Like, you know, it reminded me of like our soils class back in school.
Stratification.
Right? Yeah, like, you know, it was really nuts. But yeah, they were pretty covered in silt. So we redid the drainage in those, and then obviously new drainage in the new bunkers. So
Yeah, because how many existing bunkers are no longer existing? I mean, there's a lot of bunkers that are getting fully changed or...
right, so we didn't eliminate any bunkers.
Okay.
You know, another great part of the project is we went back and looked at a lot of old aerials. You know, Nagel and Force Design have a great history here. They've been here for 16 plus years. So a lot of archives gone through. We reclaimed 5 bunkers from the original design. I'm probably most proud of the bunker between 2 and 9.
Yes.
You know, so a lot of the old aerials showed what seemed to look like, you know, kind of hard to look through black and whites and whatnot, that number 2 and what was number 7, which is now
Which
number
is now
9. Were combined fairways.
Right.
At some point in the late 50s, there's obviously a gap in aerials. Late 50s to 60s, trees were planted in between and they were broken up. The number 2 green was also shifted down the hill about 15 yards. So there was a crown that had my eye ever since I started. And I remember playing one day with my greens chair, who's a huge architectural buff. It's like, that has to be something. And we kind of just sat there and thought about it a little bit more. And he's like, you know what? That's right where, in relation to where the old original number 2 green was.
Wow.
I bet you that was the original greenside bunker on number 2. And then, so we went back and looked at aerials and found what seems to be, and you know, I posted on Twitter in my drone shot, you know, some still shots of 41, and then in the 60s, I didn't have a year for that aerial, but you could clearly see that bunker was still in existence. So we brought that back. It's obviously a little grander in scale now.
That crown that is
On the back side
of that bunker
was the original crown.
And you really tied it in, like you didn't do much earthwork. That crown is still kind of the height.
Right. And so that in combination with, you know, tree removal, we combined the 2 fairways, which is going to, you know, create some shot options. You know, you can kind of play to right and have a little longer shot in, but have a flatter lie.
Okay, but your landing lie is away from you.
Right.
To the cliff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not.
It's damned if you do, damned if you
kind
don't.
Of. And that's on number 2.
2, right.
How does it affect, how does that new area, could you play it for 9?
Well, the bunker is going to be more in the landing, so it's more of a sight bunker from 2T, more of an aiming point. It's like 285 from the tee. From number 9, it's 260, so definitely in play. It definitely tightens up that landing zone for, you know, the longer players, but not for the forward tee players. So that was, you know, another crucial, important part. And actually gave them a little more room because there's more short grass to hit from. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of a double-edged sword, which I'm really happy about. I kind of, you know, I've always described it in all the town halls or the fireside chats that, you know, number 2 is by far the biggest aesthetic change of the project.
Well, that encompasses the hillside where the trees came down. It opened, which so aesthetically opened up a ton of vista, a ton of looks.
And then scaling back from number 2, now that you're on 8T, which we redid, you can see all the bridges on our property.
That was such a cool thing that you pointed out, and yeah, it's beautiful because these bridges are impressive, especially the walking bridges because they're so long.
Right. Well, I mean, you know, they're steel. And
yeah,
they're like,
baby, they're Pennsylvania steel.
Right, and they're like, you know, that's infrastructure. I mean, it's bones, and like, I mean, money was dropped on this, right? So like, to expose that, you know, and I'm even more excited as we progress into the season and we truly have our colors and we have our leaves on the trees and, you know, you have that summer feel of a golf course.
Yeah.
And what that's going to look like.
Yeah, it's going to be cool.
And we reclaimed one on 10. We reclaimed one on 15. We put in a new bunker, and then we also put in a few new strategic bunkers.
Yes.
On 1, on 11. We're protecting the inside of the dog leg on 14. We're turning that from 1 to 2.
Okay.
I mean to 3, excuse me.
I wanted to talk about 13, the dog leg left uphill,
Right, so
par
13
5.
is, I referenced number 2 as the aesthetic change. Number 13 is the playability change.
Oh, yeah.
By far. It's, I'm not afraid to say it. We took a really bad hole and made it really good. It was...
So let's talk about what made it bad, in your opinion, or what did you not like about it? Now we're in the view of playability, and how did you make it better?
So 13 wasn't a part of the original design.
Okay.
At some said year, I don't want to say it because then I'll get called out in the 19th hole. But
sometime 50, 60 years ago.
Right. So Eshelman was developed, and that's the properties that line the perimeter of the property.
Okay.
And we sold off land that we had 3 holes on.
Okay.
So 13 was then created. And 13 used to basically be a straightaway hole, top of the bluff,
Maybe it might not have been good to start either.
Right. So it evolved and changed into a par 5 that was our number 1 handicap hole that was like 520 on paper.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't reachable. Like there was you had to hit like a big swinging hook that you actually had to put your left turn signal on to make sure it got that far
If
left.
you wanted to get there
Exactly.
in 2, that's what you had to do.
And it was a lot on your drive too. Like
Right.
you had to be in a perfect spot of your drive to pull off this second shot. And there was there's 2 clusters of pine trees at the top of the hill. Starting at about 165 to 170 out, going all the way to about 80 yards out.
Mm-hmm.
But they were at an angle. So it wasn't that the second shot was so tough. The third shot was actually your second shot of laying up was really, really difficult because you had to, A, have enough distance to clear the corner.
Okay.
B, be far enough right to not go out of bounds.
Right.
But be at an angle that you could get past the corner.
So as a golfer, when you really make this difficult shot that you had to really give it enough, not give it too much, the whole thing, you make this great shot and you're still not on the green. So how does that feel? It's like, wow, damn.
And, for me as, kind of an average length guy, if not a little lower than average length off the tee. I mean, I am 5'0", 100.
You can hammer the ball.
What was the quote from Rudy? You're 5'0", you're 100. But anywho, for me, it was always, if I didn't hit that fairway, I was in trouble.
Right.
Because we got some pretty good healthy rough here, thanks to EarthWorks.
Yeah.
And, it all was key in what club I had in my hand to get to that point. And sometimes I didn't have enough club in my hand to get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
So in a lot of times it became a 4-shot hole for me. And I'm a single digit handicapper. So
exactly. So it was an annoying hole.
It was annoying. And
So what did you and Nagel and what did you guys figure this out?
So this was work that was all in play before I even set foot on property.
Oh, excellent.
It was a renovation that was being discussed at the committee level prior to my arrival. My first committee meeting, it was the number 1 thing on agenda. So my first off season, we started the first phase, which we relocated the tee box. We shifted it down the hill, gained about 30 yards in length to all teeing grounds to where it could play its true number. It was listed on the card differently than what it played prior. It's changed the angle too to where the angle was a little more straight away. So that was the first phase. We also addressed a pretty major drainage issue by putting in a ditch across the front We
The tee's at the low part of the property.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
exactly.
Well, second. Number 7's obviously the low part, but
There's also down there, which is really cool, the old mill house or
Spring
something.
House.
Yeah, Spring House.
Spring
Yeah.
House, yeah. So that used to actually be a property. There was a house there that, unfortunately, right after the open, basically got condemned and had asbestos and was falling apart, and just nothing we could do to salvage it or turn it into anything. So tough decision by the club, but had to.
But there's this 200-year-old spring house with the
it's
spring
awesome.
that runs
Right
through the house.
Yep,
It's
that
very
feeds
cool.
our moat on 12, right. So.
But anyway, so that's where the tee starts. You took care of the drainage down there.
We did the drainage, put a ditch in, dissecting the fairway, made it into a split fairway right at the start, which has made huge difference in collecting all the water coming off of Eshelman and coming off of the neighboring properties. And now we're in phase 2, and phase 2 started with removing the corner of trees, pine trees. So now you have a straightaway second shot to go for the green in 2 if you choose, but be careful. We put in a bunker at the top of the hill, so there's an existing fairway bunker on the right. We're putting in a sightline bunker that's about 165 to 170 yards out from the green.
Okay.
That gives you your sight line because it is an extreme uphill shot. So
You can't
it's a
see the
blind
green,
second
yeah.
shot, right? So it gives you, that sight line. But on the backside of that bunker, another 30 yards down the road, is just great pod, a great Flynn pod of 3 bunkers that
man.
are going to gobble up a lot of those eager, individuals that say, hey, I'm going to go for this bad boy in 2. But so those bunkers are stretching from about 120 yards out to about 75 on the left side.
Wow.
Basically where the cluster of trees were. And
how would you define a Flynn pod of bunkers? Like are they're like the 3 smaller bunkers that kind of are spaced together, or
yeah, I mean he kind of did.
You see them around the course,
right? You see them kind of they were all in different angles.
Okay.
That was a big thing. He wasn't very uniform.
Oh yeah, so it's not like 3 parallel bunkers.
Right.
It's 3 bunkers at different angles.
Different angles, different shapes.
Oh, very cool.
Right. And he, it cracked me up some of the first time Nagel was out painting lines. I'm like, did you have a few beers last night? And he was always, and he's right. If you look at great old Flynn designs, he was never like, we're all hung up on the modern designs now of straight, crisp edges.
Right.
He was very zigzaggy.
Oh yeah, I used to weed eat them, bro.
Oh yeah, Lehigh, back in the day. That's right, folks. Jack did work on a golf course. So although we do see him in penny loafers all the time now, he does own a pair of boots.
I deserve that from the cutting greens line in the beginning.
But yeah, it was. So yeah, he had a little pod there. Put in a lot of native in between 13 and 17. I'll get back to that after 13. That's another big part of this project.
Right.
But put in a big section of native there that's not in play unless those are going for it in 2 and you hit a bad shot.
Right. So if you hit a bad, if you're going for it in 2 and you hook more than you wanted to,
or you're not lining yourself properly,
right?
You're going to be in a native.
Okay.
We cut the left green side bunker in half and opened the mouth of the green.
Oh, it was a pretty tight throat coming in.
Yeah, it was probably, I would say, 7 yards wide. Now I would say it's probably 20 to 25.
Awesome.
I'm just ballparking. We took so it used to be big left side, big right side. We made the right side bigger, wrapped it into the existing approach. So the mouth of the green actually shifts more left, so more like
with the dog leg,
right? So like if you're thinking like 4 to 6, think more now like 6 to 8. To really, the mouth is now with that second shot.
Exactly.
And now your third shot, or if you were laying up, your third shot's now going over what that right bunker used to be.
Yeah,
it got expanded. So. Just a lot of thought process, a lot of shot value, a lot of thinking to it. There's a great little kick plate that we were kind of utilizing from existing topography that will be approach for balls to kind of release towards the green. But if you don't carry it far enough on that kick plate, it's going to release into that right side bunker that I'm referencing.
There you go.
From an agronomic world and a maintenance world, huge win for me is that was a bottleneck of the property. Everyone that played 13 went left of the green. Everyone that plays 17 goes right of that green. So the entire traffic of 2 holes went through one spot. With shifting the right green side bunker a little further away from the property line, I can now send all traffic on 13 to the right of the green.
So to the border of the property, kind of off play, out of play.
Right. So we can, obviously cut that distribution in half. So that was a huge win. And, nothing's changing with the green, just making the approach bigger. And, overall, just taking a bad, mediocre hole and making it a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
And that's...
Will it still stay as the number 1 handicap?
I think the jury's out on that. I think that'd be a good running wager. I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah.
I grow grass for a living. I'm not in the world of rating. My gut tells me that it won't.
Okay.
I think that there's going to be a lot more birdies on that hole because individuals are able to advance it a lot further than they used to be. So a lot more play is going to come from around the green. But the other side of that is I think there's going to be a lot more bigger numbers.
Here's a question that just came to me. And
oh, no.
I don't know if you can answer this, but what is when all this work gets done on a golf course, what does that do for club records, for course records? Like, is there any asterisks involved, or does he had the record before the renovation, he's got the new record after the renovation? Do things like that
Jack,
happen?
you're opening up a whole nother podcast.
Okay.
Right? You're opening up the whole, if Tiger ever got to 18 majors, was his better than Jack's? And I would sit here and say Jack's was always better because he played with hickories. He played with persimmon woods.
Yeah.
Tiger has technology, but that's a whole nother conversation. We'll talk about that at Quips tonight.
Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa, should we talk about that too?
Yeah, right. Well, that's drugs. That's a whole different ballgame. No, I don't think there's no asterisk to it. As long as your layout is not changing, as long as you're completely redoing 9 holes. If the integrity of number 1 is the same, but cosmetic changes happen to support technology or to restore to its original intent, it's still number 1.
Okay, got it. Yeah,
You know what
records
I mean?
stay the same.
I would think they stay the same.
Yeah.
But good question.
Thanks, pal. Thank you. I come up with them every other week.
Yep.
So let's see. The other major thing that happened, and we've kept kind of touching to it, but it's a large part of the big vision here, is the native areas, the fine fescue areas, and what they do for building contrast. Because yes, there's a lot of trees gone, and you've opened up vistas, but you don't want it to just be like a sea of green without any change.
Right. So, contrast was definitely the big thing. I think, my interpretation and how I pitched this was it's not just contrast, though. You have to reference a great classic property. Back then, they didn't have all this technology with mowers where they could have step cuts and first cuts and second cuts, and they surely didn't have manpower. So they had these native natural areas that just weren't maintained.
Yeah.
Right? So then on top of that, so it's providing the contrast. We all know what natives look like, and they get that brown, they get that wispy, and some may be thicker than others depending on your management practices. But
whether they're in play, out of play. Right.
So for me, exposing the property and restoring it, because ultimately that's what it is. I fielded this question a lot over the last couple of months, and we've kind of tiptoed around tree removal because, look, it's a touchy subject.
Yes.
It really is. I'm in this profession to be a steward of the environment. I get that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also in this profession, especially for me, and being passionate about the game of golf and architecture, of being a steward towards classic architecture. And when you look at old aerials, I mean, there's a 1927 right behind me on my desk.
Yeah, there
hanging on
you
the
go.
wall.
Okay.
Look
No
at
trees.
that. No trees. So when William Flynn set foot on this property, there wasn't trees.
Right.
There was, through progression of time and single row irrigation and, the introduction of that, and then the 50s and 60s, there was obviously a tree movement, and that's great. I have no intent of clear cutting this property.
No.
Nor would I.
And nor have you. Like,
Yeah.
when we talk about all these tree removal, there's plenty of beautiful
absolutely.
trees out there.
Absolutely, and that's the way it's going to stay. But
Right.
what we did is we opened up these views. We opened up these vistas, from the high point of the property, but also throughout the property. That's another important part to reference. And now you're going to have the contrast in color of, the maintained playing surfaces of tees and fairways and approaches and greens, segueing out to the rough, which will be a little darker green, right? Because we all know our colors. And then you have the contrast of brown with the natives. And there's going to be a really flow to the property that I'm excited about once completely established. But ultimately, and the huge driving force of why I pitched this so much to the membership was pointing out that it was not in play. Yes, some shots may get there if they're, not struck properly, and we all hit them. I hit them, you hit them more often than I do.
I hit them.
But you know what I mean? So, yes, they're going to gobble up some balls at times. But out of play, out of mind are also very, cost-driven areas for a maintenance team. And they take time and
money and fuel and
so many just resources that we all out there know right now are challenging, but most importantly, labor. I struggle. I said it to you earlier today. It doesn't matter if you're one of the best private clubs or the best public, or you're just a mom and pop place to just go enjoy yourself. We're all struggling to get manpower. And spring is the worst time. It's right before you get your high schoolers, right before you get your college kids. A lot of people don't want to be out working on a 50-degree day with 30-mile-per-hour winds like we were out on today.
No.
And having the opportunity to address these areas to help in that fashion, I'm very fortunate the membership has bought into that. My committee supports it. It's helped me out tremendously. I'm down 10 guys right now. I'm consistently down to start the season, and then I get guys around middle of May. And, for us, the time that's associated with mowing rough, with blowing rough, fertility on rough, spraying
herbicide,
rough, et cetera, et cetera. So the cost, the time, the labor, it's just really going to allow me to put it elsewhere. And, I think a lot of times, too, your repercussions in the spring are because you're maintaining areas that you don't need to be maintaining. You don't have the manpower, so you're losing. So I got heads out there right now that are overgrown because I haven't had a chance to edge heads yet this year because I'm too busy with my staff of 15 maintaining a 400-acre property.
And doing a massive renovation.
But woe is me. We all have our stories.
Let me bring up something really cool that you told me you were doing with the old bunker sand that I thought was really interesting. First of all, because I'm driving around with you, and around the shop, there's piles of material everywhere.
There is.
Yeah. Sand. There's sand here, sand there, sand there. Sand.
Yeah.
And we brought that up at lunch, and I asked the questions. You're doing all this work. How does the supply chain affect you?
So it was, I think we all heard it last year. Every single vendor in the market August, September. Oh, early order is going to be awful. Oh, you got to get seed. Oh, you got to do this. Oh, you got to do that. So in the back of your mind, you're like, are they just telling you this so they can get a little extra cheddar going into Christmas?
Right.
Or, but, they were right. So always trust your vendors, guys and girls. Go. But, so we went to vote on September 25th. I had all those conversations in the back of my mind. I literally came in on the 26th. Anyone on my staff will tell you that if that office door is shut, something bad's going down because I'm very much an open door guy. And I shut that door and I made calls from about 7 in the morning until about 10 o'clock. And I had every single piece of material needed for a $2 million property, $2 million project on property by Thanksgiving.
Wow.
So 3,400 tons of sand, about 4 miles of drainage pipe,
Everything you needed, seed.
Pallets of seed.
Everything you needed.
Yeah, everything that I just knew irrigation parts. I mean, I remember calling Brad at Ewing and talking about drainage that we'd need, and he was like, well, ADS is 6 months out. And I was like, well, get on the horn.
Yeah, because we're going to need it.
We're going to need it. And, so very fortunate with that. And during the cavity process of the bunkers and taking the old sand out, kind of done two things with them. I've helped out some neighboring superintendents by giving some away.
Very cool.
And also started the process of top dressing all our natives.
Yeah, which this is what I thought was so interesting, that, you're top dressing natives, and tell me what your thought process was behind that.
Well, I can't take full credit for it.
Okay, that's fine.
It was definitely working with one of my most trusted consultants and kind of thinking about what we would do, and it kind of.
Anybody that hears it here first, please take full credit for it. It's all yours.
Right.
You don't have to check us.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, you think about it. Where do natives strive? Where, when you play or you watch on TV, what soil structures have the best absolute natives?
Yeah, well, a lynx course is on the lynx land, which is sandy, right?
Or the sand belt of the country.
There you go,
in the Midwest. So so that was kind of my thought process. So we just started top dressing them. So we've done it twice. Still have a monster pile. So I've already communicated to the membership that pile will probably be there through the season. We'll top dress them periodically during the year, and then top dress them again pretty heavily next winter.
Plus, I thought that the playability out of a top dress native area has got to be much better, especially if it is an area in play.
Well, it's going to be playability from a density standpoint,
right? It'll thin it out.
It's going to help, just kind of naturally, selectively thin it out on its own. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, good deal, man. Let's see. So we've had a wonderful day. We've had a great conversation. We got to touch on a whole bunch of stuff. I can't say enough how beautiful this golf course is out there, and how impressed I am with how quickly it's coming together.
Yeah. Thank you. It's and again, I can't take full credit for it.
No.
I have. My dad used to always say to me, you surround yourself by good people and good things will happen. And I've been very fortunate that, I have a great support cast of people in this industry that have been with me since I very first started working, with you and Joel, with Pete and the Kinlock guys and, other industry professionals that I've met, with Toby at Green Oaks and my friends down in Mississippi, just all across the country. Mm-hmm. But on top of that, the staff.
Yeah.
I mean, I inherited, I've said it in each podcast, a staff that I would put up against anybody.
Well, you cultivate a good environment here.
Yeah, very frustrating at times. But, when you work in this kind of atmosphere, right, and, it's that high school mentality. You're not always going to get along. Little things are going to bother you at times. You want guys to appreciate it at times. But ultimately, I've never been a part of a group that understands and senses my urgency. And that means everything, right? Like, they know when to go and they know when to break.
Perfect.
And that's the atmosphere I want to create here. Really have built a great management team. Matt's been with me for a long time. Started interning for me at Kinloch, so I think we're going into our 11th season together now.
That's really amazing.
Yeah, so he's, been a great asset for my superintendent. The club basically has two Joshes. I mean, Matt's definitely his own man. He's going to be a very successful superintendent. But
well, he's learned. Yeah, so his style and in every way, he's learned from you, and yeah, it's a great thing for this club.
Yep, and finally, had a great off season with hiring on the assistant front, which, in ways kind of lucked out. They kind of came to me in so many ways.
Well, you have to build an environment where people want to come
right
first, and you did that.
Yep, and so Zach's a great addition if I can keep him out of trees.
Okay,
he likes to climb trees.
Oh man,
which is good. It's good to have in your holster, but just great personality, great work ethic, great experience. Had a lot of construction experience at Trump before the PGA. Before, unfortunately, they didn't get to host.
You had said to me, he's so nice. I hope I don't scare him away.
I was really worried about that. I hung up offering the job, and I remember calling Matt. I was like, I hope I don't regret that. But no, he's been a great addition. Nate was with us. He was with me when I first started. Worked here prior. Was a high schooler. Worked my first season, went off to school, I think for biology, if I'm not mistaken, at Westchester. Came to me on his Thanksgiving break, said I wanted to go into turf.
Awesome.
The rest is history. He
caught the bug.
Yeah, interned for Pete down at Congressional during the grow-in, and then went up to Westchester with Dave for the amateur women's AM last year. And then to round out the team, we have a fresh, green, bright-eyed, bushy tail. Looks like he's probably graduating here in a couple weeks.
Wow.
From that other school in the state.
Penn State.
Yeah, well, I'm a Hokie.
That's the one.
But yeah, Cameron's he's going to be another good addition, good experience, local guy, so he'll fit in well. Already came during his winter break, so I don't know if he was doing that just to butter me up, but shows me he's got a great work ethic and wants to be here. So I'm excited about the team in place, but ultimately it's the staff, and finally it's the membership.
Yeah.
I can't, this is truthfully, it's not a bunker project anymore. This was a renovation. It was a restoration. And this was a 2, maybe 3-year project that we're basically accomplishing in 7 months.
Yeah. And you have to have the buy-in from the membership to do something like that.
Full support.
Yeah, full 100%.
And encouraging. I mean, no one wants to go through a winter in which, you don't get to play golf, right, unless you head south. And you come out in April, and we can finally start posting scores. And you come to a golf course that 70% of the bunkers are dirt. Multiple silver tees are just dirt because they haven't been finished,
But they were patient.
Sod, there still are.
Yeah.
I mean, we're still in progress, and just encouraging, stopping me and saying how great this is. And it's about time we rip the Band-Aid off. And, just great things that I don't want to say in a negative fashion that takes away from everything that people have accomplished from the membership, from my predecessors, from what Todd did for 16 years prior to me getting here. I inherited
a great place.
Yeah,
you did.
I mean, you knew me when I went to Longview.
It was a different story.
It was a different story.
Yep.
And, and great assistants with George and Chet and Colin that were here with me in my first few years.
Right.
And, this is just overall a great team process that happened. And then finally my committee. I mean, I've been a part of 3 clubs now at a committee level, and it is so refreshing to be a part of a group of individuals that A, do not have an agenda, and B, sit back and let me do my job.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds bad, but it's the truth. I mean, they respect it and they voice it and they give their input. But ultimately, it's
they let you make the decision.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's very good.
and then it's top to bottom. The exec team, Ryan, Gibby with the golf. It's a great project, and I'm excited about it. I think people outside of Lancaster are finally starting to catch wind.
Well, what I wanted to, I meant to do this earlier, but you do such great work with your Twitter. You take really cool drone videos. You get great pictures out there. What's your handle?
LCC Grounds 1900.
Okay.
And then my personal one is J Saunders LCC.
All right, there you go, everybody. Follow Josh and follow the grounds crew here because they put out some great content.
Yeah, I started that when I was at Longview and had an account there, and I'm a big believer in communication. Mm-hmm. I think you're covering your bases. It's almost job security. Mm-hmm. If you give them, if you just bum rush them with just all this freaking communication, how can they point something out?
Right, but you're not vomiting on people out there though with your communication, and it's not just like little single sentence updates. You're putting out content that's fun and entertaining. So you do really good work. Yep. All right, man.
Cool.
This was fun.
This is as always, and again, on behalf of all us grass growers, and people in the landscape world, period. The people in the turf world.
Yes.
I mean, it's not just golf course guys that are probably sitting here listening to this. And
yeah, I think that golfers are starting to listen too. So yeah, we've got some good stuff going on here, dude. Because you're entertaining.
Yeah, if we can sit here and talk for an hour and 20 minutes, life is pretty good.
All right, buddy. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure having you. Pleasure. I look forward to next year and many years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, because don't forget, we got the big tournament. And I've got some ideas for that, like podcast mid-tournament. So be ready. All right? So be ready.
Because I'm really going to have a lot of time for that, Jack.
Make some time. All right. Thanks, Josh.
Cool. Thank you.
So long, everybody. This was another great EarthWorks podcast. Tune in next week. We'll have some more material. So long.